I have a pretty fun video. At least I think it's fun. I hope you guys think it's fun. And it is ultra-specific book recommendations based off of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. So I'm going to be recommending books based off of very specific aspects of these two games. So these book recommendations are not necessarily going to have the same atmosphere or feelings of the games as a whole, but if you like the games for specific things, then maybe you might like these books. So we're going to start with a book recommendation for if you like the puzzly parts of quests and the wholesome side quests in both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. If you like those two aspects of those games, then you should read Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. Tress of the Emerald Sea is a delightful story about a girl who ventures off into the poisonous sea in search for the love of her life to try and save him. And along the way, she meets pirates and fights pirates and learns how different things in the world work, like these spores that the seas are made out of. There's really dangerous ones that you can use as weapons, and she becomes a master of some of them. And she becomes friends with the people on the ship, and there's a mystery behind where the love of her life is and how she can find him. And she has to be very smart about things to try and figure out how to get to the love of her life and how to convince people to help her get there and what she's going to do once she gets there. The story, for the most part, is pretty cozy. It does have some suspenseful, action-y parts, so it's not like as cozy as other cozy books, but there are big chunks of the story that are cozy, and the writing is just delightful, and the love story in it is so sweet, and the adventure is so much fun. If you like the friendly constructs in Tears of the Kingdom, then I think that you should read A Psalm for the Wild-Built by Becky Chambers. This book is cozy. Super cozy. There is no conflict in this. The only conflict that is in this is internal conflict with yourself that the characters have. A Psalm for the Wild-Built, and its sequel that you should also read, takes place in a world that is similar to our own, that has different religions than us, and also had robots working in factories and stuff. And the robots felt like they were mistreated, and they had an uprising, and they basically came to this agreement where the robots could live out in the wild away from human influence and live separately from each other. And it's been like that for many, many, many years. And this story follows a tea monk who is a monk of this person's religion, who travels around to different towns serving tea to people and listening to their problems and helping them get through things. And this tea monk is not really feeling satisfied in their life, and they decide to go off on an adventure on their own into the wilderness, and they meet a robot, and they become friends. And it is just about them becoming friends and learning about each other and themselves, and it's a fucking delight. If you like the temples in the sky from Tears of the Kingdom and the divine beasts that are shaped like animals in Breath of the Wild, then I think you should read Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. I mean, I was about to say this book is a delight. These books are all a delight in one way or another. Strange the Dreamer is a delight. This follows a man named Laszlo Strange who is obsessed with this city called Weep that's basically like a myth. Nobody knows if it once existed and doesn't anymore, or if it's just a made-up city that has never been real. But he has spent his whole life researching it because it's so comforting to him. And then they find out that this city actually is real, and a group of people from the city have come to where Laszlo lives looking for people of different skills and abilities to go back with them to this mystical land to help them solve a problem. Essentially, there's a big thing in the sky that they need help getting down. And Laszlo gets to go, and it is about him and the other group of people there trying to figure out what is with this big, giant, angel-shaped ship in the sky, and how to get it down, what to do with it. It also follows the people who live on the angel-shaped ship, and what is happening with them and their story. And there's a really nice love story in it, and people go into people's dreams and communicate that way and get into people's heads through their dreams. you get to find out like what happened to the city and what happened to these people who are living up in the ship and why they're there. And there is some dark stuff to this story. It's not all delightful. There is some stuff that's hard to read about. Like there's talk of people who were basically kidnapped and sexually assaulted, but it is not talked about in detail, and it is not talked about heavily. You don't have to read about it happening. It is just a thing that happened that does get discussed, but I do feel like I need to say that to people in case they can't have any of that in their books at all. I am not a person who is good with that kind of stuff in my books, but I think it's handled really well in this. Even though parts of the story are really dark, it's contrasted really well with the really nice parts of the story, like Laszlo getting to visit this city that he's always dreamed of being able to visit. It's like if I was able to go to Hyrule. Like it's like that level of awe and wonder and love. And then the writing is delightful as well. So even though there is some dark parts of the story, it's contrasted really well with not dark things and really nice writing. If you like the runes in Breath of the Wild, then I think you should read Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. Mistborn is, I don't know, I feel like probably a good starting point with Brandon Sanderson, but I don't know, because I haven't read a lot of Brandon Sanderson. This was my first Brandon Sanderson book. It took me a little bit to get into because it is pretty dense, but it was really good. I really enjoyed this. So this takes place in a world where there are people who have magical abilities, and they use these magical abilities by ingesting different types of metals, and different types of metals do different things, and people only have the ability to manipulate one or two metals. But there are people called Mistborns, which means they can manipulate all the metals, so they have all the powers. So essentially with your powers, you can fly, and you can like push things really far away and have things come to you really quickly, and you can do other things that I'm forgetting. There's a whole bunch of different powers that you have. And it follows Kelsier, who's basically trying to plan like a revolution because a lot of people are oppressed in this world. Also follows him helping a young girl who he believes to be Mistborn, and he is kind of walking her through the process of everything and teaching her about everything as well. I do have another recommendation for if you like the runes in Breath of the Wild that's less dense than this, if you wanted something that's a little bit faster and easier to read, which is Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. Because this also follows people who have different powers, and it follows a girl who, she doesn't have the ability to have all of the powers, but she has a power that nobody else has, and it's going to save the world, pretty much. And this is a lot of fun. I actually read this book in 24 hours. So if you like the stables in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, then you should read Legends and Lattes. This is another really cozy book about an orc who opens a coffee shop in a fantasy world where nobody knows what coffee is. And it's just wonderful. I feel like there isn't really much else to say. That's what it's about. She hires a succubus, so it's about a coffee shop being run by an orc and a succubus. And it just follows their journey, kind of learning what works and what doesn't work, and getting people excited about coming into this cafe, drinking coffee, and eating biscotti. There is a little bit of stress that turns into a big pile of stress near the end, so just prepare yourself for that. Other than that, it's really cozy, it's really sweet, and fully gives me stable vibes from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. If you like Minoru and her construct sage in Tears of the Kingdom, then I think you should read Sleeping Giants by Sylvain Neuvel. This book is really cool. It's told in like interviews and case reports and I think video and audio transcripts as well. It's very similar to the Illuminae series. If you've read Illuminae, it's just not laid out in the same way. It's just written like regular words. Whereas in Illuminae, if you read that and you're comparing it to that, Illuminae has like, it's almost like you're looking at images of these reports and stuff like that. Whereas this is just typed out, but it's told through interviews and case files and stuff. So it starts off with a little girl going for a bike ride and falling into a hole and landing in the palm of a giant hand. Like she fits right in the middle of the palm. And she grows up, becomes an adult, and she ends up being the lead scientist on figuring out where this came from and what it is. And they're actually finding pieces of this giant robot buried all over the world. And it's about the team of people who are finding the pieces, digging them up, and putting it together and figuring out what it does and where it's from. It's a really cool story. Some of the stuff that happens in it is just wild. Like, my jaw dropped a few times reading this book. and it's a trilogy, so if you really like it, there's 2 more books after that you can read, but this one is really cool. And Mineru's big giant construct sage and the way that Link rides her reminded me of the big robot in this. And last but not least, if you like the mushroom outfits and all the fashion side quests from Tears of the Kingdom, I think that you should read The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang. This is an adorable graphic novel that has gorgeous illustrations, amazing facial expressions. I adore this story so much, and it is about a prince who likes to wear dresses and the person who makes the dresses for him. And it's fabulous. Just as fabulous as everyone thinks all the mushroom outfits are in Tears of the Kingdom. I hope you guys like these recommendations. If you like this and I think of more book recommendations that I think match certain aspects of these games or other games that I play maybe, then I'll do more videos like this. And I hope you liked this. And that's all. Have a good day. Bye.